Hey gang, welcome. So today's video is going to build off of one of my previous videos which talked about significant figures. And the link is going to be in the description so you can rewatch that if you have any questions prior to this video. Because in this video, what we're going to do is a practice problem using significant figures, making sure we have the right amount of significant figures, and also how to handle all those intermediate steps and whether or not we should be rounding and going with the specific number of significant figures every step of the way. So let's jump into it. So in today's problem, we have a contractor who is installing new carpet in an oddly shaped office suite. They need to determine the total square feet of the suite, and below is a diagram with the measured floor dimensions. Now, beware with this diagram, as I have here, it is not drawn to scale. Just beware. And so as you can see here, we have a bunch of different dimensions. We see that we've got, in some cases, 4 significant figures. We've got 2 significant figures in some other sections. There's a little bit of variety in these measurements. And we're going to, in this problem, just assume that these are the significant figures I have. These are the measurements, and they're measured as well as they can be measured. So how do we handle this? Well, we're going to break this oddly shaped suite into 2 different sections. We'll have section A and section B. So we're just going to make 2 different rectangles. We'll figure out the square footage in each rectangle, sum it up to get the total square footage for our contractor. Now, as you might notice, if I'm calculating the square footage for 2 different sections, that means that I have some in-between steps to get to my final square footage for the whole office suite. And so what do? How do you handle those intermediate steps? Do I round the significant figures every step of the way until I get my final value? Do I wait a bit? How many decimals should I have? And so this is where there's a new concept that comes into play when you have specific values that have significant figures, and you're not worried about the significant figures until the very end. And so when you have intermediate steps in your calculations, what you end up doing is you add guard digits. And guard digits are additional decimals included for your intermediate values, so that once you reach your final value, then you'll write it with the correct number of significant figures. And so as we follow through with this practice problem, let's worry about area A. So in this case, we take 0.6325 meters multiplied by 5.2 meters, and that's going to give me 3.289 meters squared. And as I just mentioned before, we're going to focus on having guard digits. Even though the lowest number of significant figures is 2, we're going to keep a couple of extra decimals so that we will worry about the significant figures at the very end. And now we're going to go to the area of B, and in this case it's 7.1 meters times 3.15 meters, and that's going to give me 22.365 meters squared. And now again we're going to add a couple of extra decimals, and in this case when we sum up area of A and area of B, we get 25.654 meters squared. And now, if I'm following the proper significant figure convention, because based on all of those measurements I'm using, the lowest number of significant figures is 2, and therefore we're going to be having 2 significant figures in my final answer, and that's going to be 26 square meters. Now, let's say I actually measured I kept the correct number of significant figures every step of the way. What happens? So in area of A, what we'll see is that instead of 3.289 square meters, we'll actually have 3.3 square meters. And next, if we work with area B and we take that 22.365 square meters, again, we're going to go to 2 significant figures. In that case, we're going to have 22 square meters. And now if I sum that up, what ends up happening, again, following proper significant figure convention, is that I end up actually having 25 square meters. And so this is part of why it's important to use guard digits every step of the way, because if you abbreviate your significant figures in the intermediate steps, that can actually cause your final answer to be very different from someone else's final answer. And so that's our practice problem of the day. And hopefully you now have a comfortable feeling with guard digits, and you see why those are important in the intermediate steps. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.